Hello, everyone, and happy New Year. I guess this is probably mid-January when this is coming out. I would have thought, but yeah. How the devil are you, Steve? Are you feeling buoyed by the passing of time into a new year to dig your teeth into some resolutions of the New Year variety?
Absolutely. I am not typically somebody who does New Year's resolutions
Hmm.
unless they're gaming related.
Yeah.
So I am excited to sink my teeth into some new games this year and just kind of see what the year holds.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't do New Year's resolutions because I think it's hard to make sweeping changes that are meaningful. But I do set myself little goals of play X amount of this, read this amount of books, watch this amount of films, and I think it's a quite nice way to if you don't set the numbers to a ridiculous height, like someone at my work read 100 books last year, and they were just plowing through novellas in December to
Yeah.
try and get there, and it's just it's no fun. Don't make it competitive. Like set the bar low, and just
Yeah.
have a base number that you're happy with doing that week. So that year, I mean, you don't want to read 100 books in a week. That's insane.
I mean, that
But
sounds fun.
it does, yeah. Could read probably 100 takeaway menus,
There you
but
go.
yeah, but nothing else. Before we get into this year's games that we're going to play, we have the small matter of last year's games, Steve, because we set ourselves
Yes.
these goals of playing 10 role playing games. Between us, 5 each we picked. The
Mhm.
last we left it, you had completed your challenge. You had been
Yes.
diligent and committed, whereas I was
Yep.
floundering. I still had 2 more games to play. I can confirm that I have played Void 1680 AM, and that game is fucking brilliant.
Awesome.
Some of you, my patrons especially, will be hearing that soon. I kind of lost control of the recording I did of it, and it's got a little ambitious, and I've kind of roped a few more people in to being involved, and it's kind of sprawling, but it's good. I don't know if it'll survive in the public sphere because of licensing,
Hmm.
but hopefully more people will get to hear it if it goes up on the YouTube of Bannerless Games or it gets broadcast on AM radio. But that is unfortunately as good as I got. I did not manage to get round to playing Slayers, so you win, Steve. What do you want me to say?
Yes.
Like you schooled me. Is there anything you want to say in your acceptance speech, being crowned king of the Ironsworn guys?
I mean, I think we all knew it was going to happen.
We didn't know it was going to happen. It was obviously. And do you remember at the start you were like, "Oh God, you've played 2 games. I
Yeah.
feel so far
I'm so
behind."
far behind.
I mean,
Yeah.
you had a really good. You had a couple of solo games because you soloed Delta Green, didn't you?
Yes. I'm actually still soloing Delta Green.
Yeah, so that's so don't be surprised if you see more solo games on my list for 2025.
Yeah.
Because yeah, but I'm sorry everyone, I let the side down. I did have extenuating circumstances, plus also lazy, and also Slayers was just a really difficult one to get on the table. I did have a group together to play it, but unfortunately it got cancelled at the
It
11th hour.
happens.
It happens, but yeah, hopefully next year, this year, sorry, will be a little bit more winning for me.
Yeah.
And speaking of new starts, Steve, we've got new branding. Here we go. We've moved out of the. Steve is mugging for the camera because he can't see this. Everyone, but
You
yeah,
don't have to tell them that.
no, I have to. I don't want you to have the satisfaction of winning and looking like you know what's on the screen. But yeah, so we've got some games. Now, this year, we decided that we would change it slightly. We still picked 5 games each for 10 games total, but we also picked a couple of games that we are going to play together on the channel. Because we played Dead Belt last year and we really liked that. We had some other games that we wanted to play that we never got round to. But this year we kind of doing this, so we will almost kind of hold ourselves accountable to playing some games on the channel for you people to kind of watch, because we really enjoyed that last time, didn't we? It's just a shame we didn't kind of get it together. And we enjoy playing games together, privately,
Yeah.
not on the channel, which is something we don't get to do nearly as often enough. This is a nice way to kind of make that happen. So, are you ready, Steve?
I am so ready.
So let's begin. So the first pick is mine, one of mine, and this probably isn't going to surprise many people because I think it will be on a lot of people's lists. It was one of the biggest Kickstarters from last year. It is Legend in the Mist, which is from Son of Oak Games, written by Amit Moshe, and it's based on City of Mist, which you've played, haven't you, Steve?
Yes.
And I hear a lot of good things about. But this is a really curious game. I'm not generally that bothered about fantasy, and this is it's billed as rustic fantasy, which is their way of saying that none of your characters have been out of the village you start in, and it's basically this huge kind of like, you know, discovery and loss of innocence as you kind of get further and further out into the terrifying world. What drew me to Legend in the Mist is obviously it had a very high profile Kickstarter and it's got glorious artwork, and the presentation of the game is really lovely. But you know, we talk all the time about Powered by the Apocalypse game mechanics because it props up in a lot of games that we play. And if you look at those game mechanics and trace their evolution back to Apocalypse World and, you know, how it's changed over the years, this feels like a significant step because they have ditched all the moves from the Powered by the Apocalypse system. There are no things to trigger in the fiction. And they have also removed all of the stats. And the way that Legend in the Mist works is through a tag system where your character is just made up of a bunch of thematic descriptors and you get to apply them to any situation or dice roll, and the situation and the environment, your enemies, the challenges you're doing, they all have their own tags. Now that's not new, we've seen that in games before, but the way that this is implementing it seems really, really, really cool, and it looks like pretty much everything that's on your character sheet, everything, none of it's flavor. It's all usable in game, whether or not it's like a spell or a title that you've been bestowed, or whether it's just like a catchphrase that your character has. Everything does something mechanically, and it doesn't look like it's like mega crunchy. It looks super flexible. You build your characters like in a really loose way using these themes, and those themes can change as you kind of grow and develop. If you want to use the example of like the Fellowship of the Ring, Aragorn the Ranger is very different to Aragorn the king at the end of Return of the King, and you know that's represented in this not just by getting some new skills, it's by changing the themes that are kind of associated with your character. I think it looks super interesting, and I'm really curious as to how this will play out. Also, in the plus column for this game is it's got a solo and a GM-less mode, which I'm super. I convinced you to back this, didn't I, Steve? I think when it was on Kickstarter.
You absolutely did. Yeah,
and
I have a weakness for when, you know, a game is like, oh, there are solo rules, because it's very much like, oh, I could probably play that on the channel at some point. But yeah, you were like, you should not miss this. And I took your advice and I have not missed it. And I'm also very excited about it. And it is interesting because I'm running a City of Mist campaign right now. And you can see some of the beginning pieces of that design in there where they basically did away with stats. And you have power tags, which you know, you like when you're creating a character, you answer some questions, and that's how you generate your power tags. And they can be kind of anything you want them to be, and then you apply them when you encounter a situation, and that's how you get your number that you're adding to your dice roll. So it's really cool to see that the like start of that design. But then I'm really interested to see the like removing the moves from the equation to see how that affects the kind of the gameplay loop.
Yeah, we've become so accustomed to when X happens, do this, and not having GMs call for rolls. It's almost going to require a new rhythm of play, I think, isn't it? It's going to be quite interesting. And that's what drew me to this. Like, at first the kind of the art and everything is super appealing. It's, like I said, it's been a super polished and presentation. They know exactly what they're doing, these guys. But it was only when I started digging into the system that I realized that, this actually could be something a lot more interesting. And also, it's soon, I think. Like, I know the full game isn't out for a while, but I think the first they're dropping the rules and everything in modules, aren't they? Like the first, the quick start rules have been out for a while. It's called the Tinderbox, isn't it? Looking through that is kind of cool. And then I think they're starting to like drop the character generation stuff at the end of this month, and then a few more bits, and then by the middle of the year we should have everything. But super intrigued by Legend of the Mist. So that is my first choice. Steve, what is the first game on your docket?
First game on my docket is Eat the Reich, because good Lord, is this not a vibe? Like, it is colorful. It is one of those games where I think you can basically just kind of pick it up, and it's a really great one-shot game. But also on the back cover, it says this is the blurb for it. It's, the year is 1943. You are a unit of crack vampire commandos coffin dropped into occupied Paris. You have one mission: drink all of Hitler's blood.
Yes,
and if that's not just everything you need to know, I don't know what else I can say.
Yeah.
So this, like a lot of my games are. I noticed this when I was kind of reviewing them last night in preparation for this, that like a lot of my games are kind of have a vibe and have a mood to them. So I haven't actually kind of read through and learned the rules yet, but this game by Rowan, Rook, and Deckard is definitely one of my like must play as soon as possible this year games, and I'm planning to take it with me. I've got a kind of gaming weekend coming up the end of this month, and this will be one of the games that I take with me, and hopefully I can get it to the table.
Yeah, I got it at UK Game Expo last year, and I think that was when it just kind of, the print run had just come out, the crowdfunder or whatever, however they released it, did great. And it was just one of those books that it was one of the first stalls I went to pick up, because the book is glorious. Yeah. The attitude that pervades through the entire text is just, kind of spot on. And, if you put that down in your gaming group, you're like, right, who wants to punch some Nazis and drink Hitler's blood? And if anyone says, oh, actually, can I play a paladin? Like, that's the vibe check that they have instantly failed. What I really like about Eat the Reich, once you do dig into it, is it really leans into this over-the-top, ultra-violent approach to resolving things, and it's if you really lean into that, I think you're going to have an awful lot of fun.
Yeah, exactly right. Like it is from the design. I mean, even the cover is like tactile, and it's just everything leafing through it. I'm just like, I just want to create mayhem. Yeah.
And I think you're right. It'd be a perfect one shot. I think even the actual. Correct me if I'm wrong, and you might find different if you read it through. But I'm pretty sure like the runs of the game are very short anyway. Even if you played the full thing, you're only playing like 3, 4, 5 sessions. I think it's quite short, which is obviously always appealing. But a great game. I really hope to get it in this year. It was very close to being on my list. It was on my long list, which was so long. It didn't quite make my short list. When I saw it appear on yours, I took it off. So, I will live it vicariously through you this year, probably. Sounds cool. Great. Eat the Reich. My second game on my list, I've decided to play a couple of, or at least definitely one older game. And when I say older, like I don't think it's only like 3 years old, but it's a game that I feel like I should have played by now, because it is a game that has spawned an entire engine of imitators, but games that are built on this game is The Wretched by Chris Bissett. It is, if you don't know, it is a game in which you play the sole survivor on a spaceship drifting through the void, but you're not alone. You are on this ship with a dangerous alien life form that has killed the rest of your crew. And the game entails you recording via a kind of a voice or video your very last dispatch to whoever finds this. And you have to also try and escape. But the way the game does this is through some incredible tension. You will be turning over playing cards to kind of generate some plot elements. But there is also the small matter of a Jenga tower that is built, and as I believe that as you start to slowly remove the blocks as prompted by the cards and the game's mechanics, the situation worsens. And it's a game that I heard about instantly, and because there's a couple of games that use Jenga towers. Dread is another one that uses Jenga towers, but this one being solo, and there's a really great playthrough of this with Cassie Mothwin on YouTube. You can find it. She wrote Tangled Blessings. It's a really tense game, and it really digs into the emotion of what's going on. The fact that this is your last will and testament and your last bit of recorded life, really adds this kind of veneer of sadness to it. And if I can figure out a way to get the Jenga tower filmed, I'll probably play this on the channel. I'm definitely going to play it anyway, just because it's fun. And yeah, have you had any experience with this, Steve?
Other than kind of what you mentioned of it being out in the zeitgeist, if you will, and seeing Cassie's playthrough of it, I have always kind of steered away from any of the Jenga tower games because I'm terrified of Jenga towers. And also I have cats that routinely like to charge into the room and jump up onto my desk. And I cannot imagine trying to go through playing this really tense game and just a cat comes careening into the room and knocks the tower over and just but that being said, I am very excited to see you play it.
Ripley survived the film Alien with a cat. And that's because there was no Jenga tower involved.
Yeah.
Had there been, or any kind of delicate operation, like of any kind of like steering or any kind of like advanced technology that would have saved her life quickly, then that cat was going to ruin that day. But yeah, I'm super excited to get this on the table. I've had it for so long. One of those ones that I've had for ages and not read, and then you actually read it and you're like, oh, this isn't quite the game I thought it was.
Yeah.
And then you dig more into it and you're like, oh, this is very cool. It's a little wonder why it's kind of inspired so many other games. So yeah, The Wretched. Your next pick, Steve, is one we've talked about before, isn't it? Through when we talk about world building. What is it?
It is Stars Without Number by Kevin Crawford, a game that is actually an older game.
And how old
has
is it?
Has been around for a little while. More than 3 years.
Yeah, more than 3 years. That's old, yeah.
So this is a game that has been on my radar for a long time. When I was planning out my current campaign, book one, as I'm calling it, I was waffling between just playing more Starforged, because that's always a good decision, trying out Traveler or trying out Stars Without Number. And for those of you who listen to my current campaign, I obviously chose Traveler. So I've been playing that and really enjoying that. But one of the things that intrigued me about Stars Without Number is that the combat system uses sort of old school D&D rules, but then the skill system is basically the Traveler skill system, where you roll 2d6 plus your skill level in your skill training in a skill, and then you add those together, and you're going for a target number of 8 typically. And so just the idea of like taking this like old school D&D where you get into combat and you roll a d20, and it's designed that way because it's more random. Combat is supposed to be more random. You have lower HP, so you're more likely to get hurt or killed. Whereas the skill system is, basically like if you are trained in a skill, you're more likely to succeed at it than somebody who isn't trained in a skill, which makes sense. And you can simulate that in D&D by doing like skill proficiencies and giving extra bonuses and stuff like that. But I thought it was a really interesting idea to kind of merge those two concepts. And then what's really cool about Stars Without Number is that it is designed to be a sandbox game. It has a lot of awesome tools. We talked about using the faction tools for World Without Number. When I was doing my my fantasy campaign, there's a whole bunch of tools like that in Stars Without Number for factions, for building star systems, all of these different things, which as a solo player, having all sorts of tools and tables and oracles to roll on is always satisfying. And also the basic edition is free.
Always nice.
You just go get the basic edition, which is like most of the game. And I think that's a really easy way to get into games like that. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I tried out Ironsworn that first time, because I was like, well, it literally does not cost me anything to download this and try it out. And I discovered a game that I love. And
here we are.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get into Stars Without Number. And I've actually have volunteered to run a mini campaign on that same gaming weekend at the end of the month. I'm shooting to have
half of these games
played by the end of January. So I will see if that actually happens, but I'm really excited to play Stars Without Number either with a group or solo. So
yeah, I'm intrigued because the thing is, Stars Without Number is one that I've always heard people talk about, but not the game of it. Like, if you spend any time on Reddit, people will say, oh, I use this system with Stars Without Numbers world building tools, or like whatever it is that they like from those. So I've never actually seen too much of people actually playing the game, so I'm intrigued to see what it pans out like. And I'm very curious whether or not the game is as good as the tools that it gives you to build your own world. Yeah. But yeah, cool. Next up, we are going to talk about a game, the first of the 2 games that we are committing to playing together on the channel. I did mention last year that we played Dead Belt together, and we couldn't quite get another game in towards the end of the year for various reasons. But the game that we did decide to play, we are shunting towards this year, and we're really excited to play it. It is Wraith Hound by Cesar Capacle, and it is much like Dead Belt, the game in which we explored the wreckage of ships drifting through space by flipping over cards which mapped out the various segments of the ship as. And I don't want to say one of us broke the ship in half, but it wasn't me. But I found that a really fun way of like visualizing this kind of the environment that you were playing in. And the thing is with Dead Belt is that we were adding a lot of the role playing stuff ourselves. It's really more a board game, isn't it? Dead Belt than it is a role playing game. Now, Wraithound, on the other hand, is kind of very similar in that you are setting up these situations where you, it's for 1 to 3 players, it's cooperative, and you are supernaturally gifted ghost hunters, basically, and you generate a a haunted house to go into, and it could be a castle or a mansion or a manor or a lighthouse or whatever. And you map out this castle by floor and by rooms, and you kind of explore and find clues and figure out, and it informs what you're doing. And there's a lot more role-playing opportunities, and there's a lot more interesting things to do. But the cool thing is that it generates, as you play through it, a boss monster, essentially, that you have to show down against, and how well you do discovering all the clues and getting to it kind of is how prepared you are to take on this boss monster. It was one that we instantly saw and we were like, yeah, we're into that.
Yeah. We'll have some of that.
Yeah. The art's super cool and evocative. It's super gothic, and, you know, there's some very, very gnarly monsters in there to get involved with, and it comes with a virtual tabletop as well, which is like made bespoke for this. We don't have to cobble it together with Roll20 and Microsoft Paint like we did for Dead Belt. But yeah, I'm super excited to play Wraithound with you, Steve. But you've also picked another co-op game or a two-player game for us to play on the channel. What is it?
It is Lost Among the Starlit Wreckage by Seamus Connolly. And I don't know what bundle I backed at some point, but I was going, when we were planning this episode out, I was going through all my games on itch, and I was like, why do I have so many mecha games in my library? As somebody who is not a huge like mecha fiction fan, but I came across Lost Among the Starlit Wreckage and thought that it had some cool potential for the channel and for us to play, because you essentially, it is a solo game and it's a journaling game, but you can play it co-op. And so the solo aspect of it is that you are the pilot of a heavily damaged mecha that is floating in the debris of a great battle. And you are lost, and you are kind of answering prompts to, you know, talk about your experiences in the battle and the war and stuff like that. And you're calling out, you're transmitting out, hoping that someone will hear you and will come rescue you. And so with the co-op side of that, you have one person who's playing the pilot, and then the other person is playing the rescuer who is trying to find them.
Oh, that's cool.
And that's why I thought it would be a fun game for us to play on the channel.
Yeah, I think that sounds super fun. I had a quick scan through it yesterday when you kind of suggested it, and yeah, it looks really cool. And you can really like dial up the isolation and yeah, I might just decide not to rescue you. So, I might just be like,
who says you're going to be the rescuer?
Well, that's a good point.
I
Yeah,
think
no
we should
one
flip for it.
No one should put me in charge of a mech.
Yeah.
Ever. I think that's I'll be a salvage guy. That's absolutely fine. Maybe the salvage person could be one of the person from Dead Belt that we played.
There you go.
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
Yeah. We'll build out the Ironsworn Guyz cinematic universe. It's all connected. But yeah, I'm super excited for this one. I think it sounds like an awful lot of fun. So those were our two co-op games that we are going to play on the channel this year. And please hold us to it, everyone, because Lord knows we won't hold ourselves to it. Right, back to individual picks. My next pick is a game that was also crowdfunded last year that's out very shortly. It should turn up, I think, any minute now. As it not now, like today, but like in the next couple of months or so. It is a super intriguing game. It is called Deadline, a Clockwork Press, and it is by Fleur and Chelsea Ciortino, who are a pair of sisters from Malta. They made a game that came out last year or the year before called Flabbergasted, which was, by all accounts, excellent. I actually met them at the UK Game Expo at the exhibitor fair the night before the expo opened, and they were like super lovely and talked about the game with me. But when I saw Deadline, I was like, now this seems like something I'm into. It is a GM-less RPG, and you can play it, with I think up to 4 players. But you play journalists, and you are chronicling the goings on in a city that you also get to define, and you do that through the mechanisms of making a newspaper. So it is partially a journaling newspaper game where you kind of write headlines and you document how certain parts of this city that you've made have developed over the years. But then it's also a map making game as well, because you also get to like establish the people and the districts and the regions of this city. And yeah, you document the whole thing. And the cool thing is, I mean, that's cool anyway, right? You kind of, but you can, there are lots of different types of papers, and with whatever city you devise, you can make whatever you want to. So if you devise this city, which has a kind of a real slobs v snobs type dynamic, there's this ruling class, and there's a cell of rebels trying to overthrow them. This could be like the freedom press of that rebel cell, or you could make the propaganda mouthpiece for the the ruling elite. And I think that's super interesting. The artwork looks lovely. It's a really kind of small game. I think it comes with a big kind of broadsheet sized newspaper headline, but like the whole thing is just 8 sides of paper or whatever. It seems very elegantly designed, and I think it looks super unique and super fun. I'd be interested when it does turn up to see how easy it is to kind of visualize for YouTube, to see if I could do something on the channel. But I think it seems like like you play The Quiet Year, you put aside a few hours in the afternoon, 2 of you sit down with some paper and pens and you do it. This seems like it's got that kind of vibe, but it also seems like you can kind of dial it up, and there's a lot of levers to pull to tell a very interesting story. And I think the default setting for the city that you define is a bit kind of steampunky, kind of industrial revolution, not quite as grim as like Blades in the Dark, but that kind of vibe. And yeah, I'm super excited about that one. Did you hear about this one when it was out?
No, I didn't. So I'm super excited to see how you enjoy it, and kind of hear a little bit more about it in the future. But it sounds awesome. And as you were talking about it, I was thinking about it would be fun to be an ink rake in Blades in the Dark, and like use that as even just like a filler game. It's like, oh, we're taking a break for a couple of weeks in between scores or something like that, or like in between seasons, and like let's do this and kind of create the next season's like rumors and the ways that the city shifts and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's a really cool, sounds like an awesome system and an awesome idea.
Yeah, I'm super excited. And it feels a little bit like it's got that Quiet Year vibe, in the sense that you play the Quiet Year sometimes, and then people do it, finish it, and then play in the setting that they've just on the map that they've just devised, basically. And it feels like something, like you say, you could insert this into another game, use the mechanisms of Deadline to fill out details of your world and the press, which is not, I've not really ever seen a role-playing game that's focused on journalism. I think that's really interesting setup. So yeah, as soon as I saw it, I was like, insta-back, thank you. I'm such a mug. Like, I'll back anything. If it sounds cool and it's got pretty art, I'm into it. All right, what's your next choice, Steve?
Well, speaking of seeing pretty art and immediately backing, my next one is Astro Prisma by Crescent Chimera.
The art is...
Yeah. This is another one of those like Eat the Reich, where it is a vibe. It's got kind of like 80s, like punk anime vibes to it. It's colorful, really striking design. This is another one that as kind of the system's been in development, and like I've been getting the emails with the various kind of playtest materials and stuff like that. I've been like, okay, I'm not going to look at it quite yet. I'm just going to let it continue to cook, because I've got other things going on. But just kind of scrolling through it in the last week or so, I think this game has some really cool potential for to be another great one-shot game. But there's also a campaign mode, which I'm excited about that. And one of the cool things about the system is that they use a 36 hex grid for a star system,
Ooh.
and you using D66 rolls explore the system, and you come across a variety of different encounters, potential encounters. So I'm really excited about that. I'm interested to see what the actual system is like, because it looks like it's, for some rolls it's 2d10, and it's kind of, you roll 1d10 of one color and you add your stat, and then the d10 of a different color and add, the enemy's stat or some other amount to it, and whichever is higher is successful. So that sounds interesting, and it also has a bit of like a board gamey feel to it, with some of the rules that I was looking at, such as, things like you can carry only two weapons. You start with 3 memory slots for hacks, but you can unlock more of those slots as you go through the game. And I can just picture like having this hex grid down on the table, and having a little icon for your ship as you like go from hex to hex, and you roll on the tables, and you roll up encounters, and then you resolve those encounters. I'm really excited to see how this game plays, and like I said, I have been restraining myself from like actually getting into it and playing it yet, but this year will be the year, and I'm ready to put on some like synthwave and just go all in.
Yeah, it's the curse, isn't it, of like, you don't want to read a role-playing game because you know you're going to end up running it or wanting to run it, and then you end up, just chasing your tail with games that you want to run and that you don't ever do. And then you end up... So making videos like this is a good way for us to say we're going to do it, and to actually try and force ourselves to do it. I didn't know about this one when you mentioned it, but like, just when I was looking for the artwork, it's gorgeous. And that hex system, the way the book's laid out, it looks incredible. So I'm super interested for this one.
Yeah, it is one of those that I knew nothing about the design. There wasn't a whole lot of information about the design. It was really one of those games where I was just like, you know what? I'm going to take a chance, take a leap, because it is absolutely gorgeous. And I even if I play it once and I'm like, oh, okay, it's the game system is, it's fine or whatever. Just having that on my shelf to leaf through, I'm like, oh yeah. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think the system is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. My penultimate choice, because we are rattling through these, Steve. We've done a great job of staying on track. This is another game that's been out for a while. It was released all the way back in the year of our Lord 2023. It's Teeth by Jim Rossignol and Marsh Davis. After we talked about deep cuts, when we did a bit of a deep dive, I suppose. You basically were talking about deep cuts whilst I listened, and you were dying of the plague. That's how that worked. I said to you when we finished, I was like, I've got to run Blades in the Dark. It's a game that I've played. I always wanted to run. It's been on my shelf. Every time I read it, I'm like, yeah, I want to do it. And then I started thinking about, Blades adjacent games. I played the Wild Sea and kind of, some other things. And then I picked up Teeth. And I read Teeth, and I was like, I am going to do this instead, because this is very much my jam. This game is one where it's a Forged in the Dark game, as I've alluded to, where the players take on the roles of hunters who are facing down occult monstrosities in this kind of cursed tract of land. I think it's in England in the 18th century, and it's cursed because I think someone did an experiment where they opened a portal to another dimension, and all these awful monstrosities spilled out of it. It's a tale as old as time, and it's quarantined. And the game's hook is that the hunters that go in only have one in-game year. to complete the agenda that their crew has, and also their secret personal agenda. They've got something they're trying to do on the side. And if they can do that within a year and get out again, then they kind of quote unquote win the game. But the game has a way of corrupting your players, and if they become too corrupted, then they're either going to have to escape and live in secret, like kind of touched by this awful otherworldly horror in the real world, or have to live in the Vale of Duluth forever. It's a game that is so rich with odd, distinctly English folklore and humor. All the art is like this woodcut style. The book grinds to a halt at one point in the rules, where it presents a period accurate recipe for eel pie. Just because. And I think that's really funny, and the game has a really good way of getting into it. There's these like little set of 3 mini adventures that you can just pick up and play as one shots, that are really evocative. There's one called Night of the Hogmen, which is literally you like running from like lots of people who are pigs. And yeah, they kind of drip feed you the rules until you get into the main campaign. I already have a table ready for this, and we're going to start that in February. I've got people who are ready to play and want to get weird, and I think this will get extraordinarily weird. The bestiary is one of the funnest things I've seen. Like, there are kind of, in The Last of Us, there's the kind of mushroom guys. It's that, but for cheese. But the cheese tastes delicious. So it's like, and it's not stupid. It's in the world itself. It makes perfect sense, and the tone of it makes perfect sense. I'm super into Teeth. I know you don't know what Teeth is, because yesterday I put it on the list late. It was a late replacement, and you were like, "What's Teeth?" And I was like, "Wow, let me tell you." I'm super excited, and I will be kind of calling on you as someone who's very experienced at Forged in the Dark games. I will probably need quite a bit of help with this. But yeah, and it's the game is set out in very much there are like maps and details about places that are like in world, but it just gives you hooks and just lets you run free and just says, you could look into this or look into this. Once you get into the quarantine zone, you're pretty much free to do what you want, and the further you go into it, the worse it gets, I believe. So yeah, I'm super excited for Teeth.
That's awesome. I really love that idea of there being a ticking clock for the campaign, and just the way that ratchets up the tension of like, okay, well, we've got to do all this stuff, and we have a deadline. We need to get moving on this stuff, and I'm excited to hear about the potential conflicts and the corruption. And when characters suddenly start going, actually, do we need to do this?
Yeah.
It's good stuff, man.
I think it's funny that like last year I was like, God, I'm so psyched to play the Between. You play monster hunters in 19th century England, and then this year I'm like, I'm so psyched to play Teeth. You play monster hunters in 18th century England. I just need to keep going slowly back through the periods of English history and fight monsters in each and every one. I love it. Yeah, I'm into it. Great idea. Right, Steve, what's your penultimate choice, sir?
My penultimate choice is a journaling game called Artefact by Jack Harrison. And this was a simple pick for me. When I was creating my list, I was looking at it and I was like, I have a lot of sci-fi games on my list. I need something more kind of fantasy to kind of balance things out a little bit. And I love me a sentient item.
Yep.
And excited about this game because you essentially just tell the story of a magical item, and the people that it comes across that carry it. I'm just really looking forward to kind of having this sort of quieter game where I think big things will happen. I think it's similar to when I played Thousand Year Old Vampire, where, you know, you have this long scope of history that you're playing through, but a lot of it comes down to the kind of quieter moments where your character has to make a decision. And usually it's not big world shaking decisions. It's very, very small and focused decisions. So I'm excited to play through something similar to that, but with this idea of a magical item and how it affects the people that it comes across. Yeah, it's been a game that's been on my list for a long time. And when I picked it up, I was like, or when we were talking about this, I was like, you know, this feels like the right kind of mood to throw in here, because a lot of my other games are either like, you know, hardcore violence, action, you know, adventure. And I think that this one will be a little bit more cozy.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything about Artefact?
No, and just hearing you talk about it, like, it reminds me a bit of Bucket of Bolts. Did you ever play that? Where it's essentially you make a spaceship, and then you talk about how it passes through the you know, the hands of various owners over the years. I really love that idea that, you know, it's not about a person with stats or, you know, goals and drives. It's about an object, and I think that you could tell some really interesting stories with that. And I think it's very nice to have a quieter game that you can just kind of sit and just dip in and out of, you know, over the course of the year. And like your run of 1,000 Year Old Vampire was lovely for that. This year I'm playing Dead Letter Society with my friend. That's one where it's kind of 1,000 Year Old Vampire. You're both vampires, but you are sending each other's actual letters through the post. And I just know that, like, hey, once every few weeks I'm going to get a letter through the post and I'm going to write back to it. So a game like that, and like Artefact, having a cozy, it's not as cozy, but like, you know, having a nice little game that just ticks along in the background is really cool. I'd be really intrigued to see if that once you finish the game, whether or not you could do something with that. Like Artefact, like, you know, we talked about Quiet Year, you can play in the world. Is Artefact something that you could, like, take a magic weapon and put it in a D&D campaign or something?
I think probably, but I'm going to find out.
Yeah, and I cannot wait to hear about it. And no doubt I will be seeing it on your channel. Okay, we're getting down to it. Last two games now. Now, my last game, Steve, I told you explicitly not to look up any details because I wanted to get your reaction live on air.
Yep.
And like the thing is that like I'm going to talk about this game now, and I'm really excited about it. But like, there's going to be loads of people out there listening to this who already heard of it, and they'll be like, "Yeah, old news, whatever." But what I would like to say is, the time it took between me hearing the pitch and me going to itch, buying it, and reading it was about 12 seconds, because this game is so my shit. It's unbelievable. It's almost comical how much of in my wheelhouse this is. The last game on my list for 2025 is Last Train to Bremen. Now, this game, it's by Caro Ascension is the person's name who wrote this. Now, I knew that name from somewhere. This person wrote the game Exquisite Biome. I don't know if you've ever heard of that game. I heard that on Party of One. And yeah, this game, good God, this game. So I will surmise this game for you now. Last Train to Bremen is a GM-less game, GM-less storytelling game for exactly 4 players. Each of the players, and the image on screen now is of 4 animals. Each of the animals represents each of the 4 players, and they are members of a band. They are members of a band who made a deal with the devil. The deal with the devil was what you'd expect it to be. It's for fame, fortune, success, and all those trappings. And the devil kept up their end of the bargain, but the band sadly have not. And they find themselves currently huddled in a boxcar on the titular Last Train to Bremen, the last place they think the devil will turn up to collect. The game is rounds of the players dueling each other in games of liar's dice. And the results of the games give you prompts that you then narrate. and one by one, you get knocked out, and the last person standing has to face the devil. So,
Yep.
that sounds all right, doesn't it?
That's perfect. Yeah.
Like, I heard that, so I've become really into the Yes Indeed podcast. And indie is about indie game with the apostrophe D. One of the writers for Rascal, the RPG kind of newsletter website, news outlet. It's their podcast, and it's really good. And they had a while ago now, it was games that people wanted to recommend, and this was one. And as soon as I heard it, they hadn't even got to whoever was recommending it. I think it might have been Jay Dragon, who wrote Wonder Home. They hadn't even got to the end of the sentence, and I'd bought it. I was like, Jesus Christ, this game. Now, I don't think this is one that can be played on the channel, because again, this has to be played in person, really, with the Liar's Dice. You could do this online, no problem, but just to get that full effect, you want to be gathered around in a darkened room with your cups and your dice. And good Lord, I cannot think of anything as cool. My boss at work, right, we have these kind of like bi-weekly check-ins, and every single time we talk about work, we get that out of the way, and then I say, I've got to tell you about the coolest RPG I've ever heard of. And he says, Matt, you say that every single 2 weeks. And I'm like, no, listen, this time, listen to this one. You're 4 musicians, you're on a train. And he was just like, yeah, fair play, that is actually pretty good. Yeah, I cannot wait to get this to the table. I think it has the potential. And the thing is there's no one who facilitates it. You're all equal participants. So you're encouraged not to read the book until you actually play. So I've only read a certain section of it, and like, it's going to be all new and all surprise. I'm really, really hoping it's a game that I can play once and then replay as a different member of the band and kind of go through. It just sounds so freaking cool.
That's awesome. You definitely did not undersell it when you told me to not look anything up about it. That is amazing.
Yeah, and I've never seen a game before with Liar's Dice that kind of uses that as a mechanic. So it's interesting. The people who made this, like in their bio, they are theatre makers. Essentially, so they're the game designers / kind of theatre practitioners, performers, and that just bleeds through every aspect of this book. But yeah, I'm super excited to play this game. I don't know how new it is, I don't know how long it's been around, but I've certainly never heard of it. And as soon as I heard of it, I was like, yes, hook it straight into my veins. Right, Steve, take us home. What is your last choice? Your last choice, I would say, is one that I'm also very excited about. So tell us what it is.
So it is Tell Motel by Ken Lowry, a solo murder mystery game. And this is another one where I was looking at all the sci-fi games on my long list, and I was like, I need to mix this up a little bit. And had come across this game a while ago, and I was like, yep, that should be it. Because it is a murder mystery. You use playing cards to kind of like show the like rooms, and then you kind of reveal cards to learn what's going on. But one of my favorite kind of concepts of this is from the like how to play section. It says, you are a motel clerk and not law enforcement, but you've seen enough of the world to know that justice and law rarely intersect. So it's like you're not playing an investigator. Like you're not a Hercule Poirot.
You haven't got a badge and a gun. You've got no legal authority.
Yep. You are a motel clerk, and someone in this hotel this motel has been murdered, and by another guest, and you're, by God, going to figure it out. I'm so excited for this.
I would say a couple of things about this game. Firstly, Ken Lowry wrote Void 1680 AM, which I've just played, and his games are legit. Like, he's very good. Like, and when I first heard about 1680 AM, I was like, this is either the best game ever or it's a gimmick that doesn't hold. And it's actually an incredible game. And when I saw Tell Motel on Crowdfunder last year, it just came at a time where I'd reached my like crowdfunding limit, and I was like, don't show me this thing which had stretch goals of like dice trays that were ashtrays that were branded for the motel, and hotel keys and all this cool like merch. I was like, I don't need this in my life because I'm going to be bankrupt. It's going to financially ruin me. But when I missed the campaign and was reading about it, like, later last year, I was like, man alive, does this game sound excellent.
Yeah.
Does this one, do you think you can play on the channel?
I'm planning to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure if I'll, try to do a video component with the cards, or just do it like I've done with other card games in the past and just kind of explain what I see.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm super pumped to hear you talk about this. I'm probably going to pick this up, put on that. But yeah, I think that is an excellent game to end on. And here, for everyone to see, is the full 12 games in the new and shiny, updated Matt and Steve's TTRPG Accountability Armature 2025. How many are we going to get through? Who's going to be the loser this year? Well, if Steve goes away on any more gaming weekends, he'll rinse the entire lot in, a couple of months.
I'm going to try to get all of your games in too.
Oh, absolute flex. Yeah. I'll hear from Steve and he'll you'll never believe me, but I'm on a train with 3 other musicians. Yeah. I'm LARPing Last Train to Bremen. But yeah, I deliberately put on some more kind of solo games or one-shot games on this because you are setting yourself up to fail a little if you want to do like 5 campaigns, because I'm already committed to other campaigns this year. I'm committed to the second season of my group's Game of the Between. We both run ongoing like long form adventures on podcast and YouTube. There's a bunch of other games I've already promised I'd run for people from last year that aren't included on this list that this is going to be a tough one this year. But I'm super excited about taking on the challenge.
Me too. I think this is an aspirational list for both of us. But I think that it's January. Like everything is new, and while there may be a lot of other games that we are already committed to in the future, I believe in us. I think we can do this.
Well, I believe in us mainly because we said, can we record this in less than an hour? And we were like, no chance. And look, we've done it. We've got breathing room. We could probably leave 3 minutes of awkward silence at the end of this, and cruise in. But yeah, I think I'm really excited for these. I'm really excited to hear about each other's games, and I'm really excited to keep each other going and motivated to try and get through as many of these as possible and enjoy them, not just try and kind of rinse them off. I think that's one thing about last year when it got to the end and I was just trying to squeeze in this one game of Slayers, and I had a group who said, oh yeah, it's going to be like 3 weekends and we'll just play like a small run. Then it became 2. Then it became, I'll just do a one shot. Then it was like, I reckon we could squeeze this in a morning before you've got to go to work. And then I was just like, no, this is just not enjoyable. Trying to bend, around this game that, might be a lot of fun, but also, how much of a chance am I giving it if I'm squeezing it into 3 hours before someone goes to work? Yeah. But yeah, cool. I'm super excited about this. Hope you guys will keep checking in on us throughout the year. Keep us honest. But yeah, cool. Cheers, Steve. And that's it, everyone. Goodbye, I guess. I'm not used to having so much time to say goodbye.
Now 2 minutes of awkward.
Yeah, we'll just wave like this for 2 minutes.